So let's learn about what's new in the HathiTrust Research Center, which helps analyze these materials from our friend Robert McDonald.
Thanks, Daniel. I'm glad to be here today, and just for your edification, if you haven't been up here, this is a giant human chessboard. My name is Robert McDonald, and I'm with the IU Libraries as well as with the Data to Insight Center, which is part of the Pervasive Technology Institute. And I'm going to talk just a little bit, very briefly today, about how you can mine over 14 million volumes to find out what's in there within the HathiTrust Digital Library. We're doing this through the HathiTrust Research Center, which is a joint project between the HathiTrust based at the University of Michigan, of course, Indiana University here with the libraries, UITS, and the Vice Provost for Research, and at the University of Illinois with their Vice Chancellor of Research and their School of Information Sciences. All right, so if you don't know about the HathiTrust, Daniel just gave you a little brief intro to some of the things being done with it here. At this point in time, this was based on the Google Books project, and lots of libraries came together, including the Big Ten Academic Alliance libraries, to create this repository of content coming out of the Google Books project. And the idea of the project was first pitched to the founders of Google, was to have basically a full-text content digital library of a library like the University of Michigan's. Well, that's easier said than done. They had to take many, many, many libraries and pull that content together in order to build it. But at this point, we've got 14.7 million volumes, 5.1 plus billion pages. 50% of the volumes are in English. There's materials from the 15th century forward. There's a 20th century concentration, mainly because that's when research libraries started acquiring lots and lots of information. 70% of the content, though, is in copyright, or it's undetermined. About 30% of it's open. Now, what you're seeing here is the standard HathiTrust one-to-one, what I call interface, and that is one person looking at one book at a time, whether it's the open public domain stuff or it's some of the stuff that IU owns, and you're authenticated through IP addressing here at IU. But what we're doing with the HathiTrust Research Center is what I call one-to-many. And some scholars call this distant reading. And in fact, we're lucky that this year in the Patent Lecture Series, one of the scholars, Franco Moretti from Stanford, who kind of invented that concept of distant reading, will be on our campus for an extended length of time. And that's exactly what we're doing here with our large-scale text analysis of the HathiTrust content using the HathiTrust Research Center tools. We've been developing this as a collaborative project since late '09. And in the last 2 years, this is where we've really brought forth a set of tools that we believe to be useful for this type of research. And what's so important about this is that it lets researchers like Colin Allen here at IU, like Ted Underwood at the University of Illinois, and I can keep going on and on because we've got now getting close to 20, 25 active researchers doing projects like this. They're mapping their research questions across the full breadth of the HathiTrust Digital Library with this distant reading concept using the tools that we have available. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of where we fit into the larger ecosystem of the HathiTrust. We have what we call the gather, analyze, produce kind of segment. And that means that if I'm a researcher, and just to bring up one concept there, and I wanted to say map Thomas Jefferson's private library across the breadth of those 14 million volumes, I could do that using some of the tools that we've developed in the Research Center. Then I could analyze those in a deeper depth, and then I could create a knowledge map from that I could pull out of the full collection of the HathiTrust and take it with me so that I could remanipulate it over time. And that's what we want to allow, is this capability to release knowledge from the full breadth of the 14 million volumes so that research can happen on them. And right now, because of the copyright issues involved with 70%, as you saw, of the collection, that can't happen freely, but it can happen where we have lots of data stores like IU next to lots of computing that can be leveraged for that type of analysis. Just a little bit about our growth. The last 2 years is where we've really done, kind of growth in terms of what our standard services are. We, from 2014 to 2016, we had 923 new users, and of course, they're coming on board as we have our outreach events. We've had 3 different uncamps on the campuses of IU, Illinois, and Michigan. We have 1,127 registered users. We have 130 regular users of our data capsule. That's our data enclave that allows you to go in and actually mine the full text of the volumes. We're doing this with text right now, but we have some researchers who are interested in looking at other things like images found within the text. Imagine if you could pull all existent entries of music from the 14 million to see what's there. And then we have 257 different institutions at play. Lots of these are members of the HathiTrust. Some of these are just independent.edu institutions that aren't members, but they have researchers wanting to take advantage of our services, and that's what we're enabling with the leverage services that we have. Now, any kind of talk about high-throughput computing would not be a full talk if I didn't have graphs like this, looking at what we did with our portal over the last 2 years. It gives you an idea. This is the large-scale analysis task that we looked at specifically through our portal. And you see there, it's in the 150 to 250 kind of range, and based on our other numbers, that's kind of what you would expect. The other interesting component of what we've done with this is looking at challenge grants or mini grants to kind of spur ideas in mapping those research questions to the full depth of the 14 million volumes. We did one round of this last year. We had 4 of them that were funded. One of those was Colin Allen's here at IU. Another one was from the University of Toronto, looking at economic concepts across. And these early ones were only done with the 4.4 million open volumes or out of copyright volumes of the collection. And we did that so that we could scale using parts of IUIE for our data capsules so we could try things out. We've taken great use of the data capacitor as well as of the research file system. I'd really like to have a good shout out for all the folks with those groups and units who've helped us achieve our goals. And now, this is our second round that we funded over this summer. As you see, it's all over the place in terms of the kind of research questions. We have one looking at specific types of fever outbreaks in the Caribbean. We have another looking at creativity over a set amount of time. Another one looking specifically at the Chicago School of Architecture, and then taking that data and mapping it to a tool called Wikifire, where they hope to have an automated or machine learning type of encyclopedia that comes from mining the entire collection. Another one looking at specific types of literature and trying out some concepts from information theory on top of that. And you'll notice these come from a variety of institutions: public, University of Iowa, also Big Ten, Brown University, Illinois Institute of Technology, and Augsburg College. So you have these researchers all over the place from those 257 institutions with different types of research questions doing different types of things. So, and this is my one typo, at least that I've caught so far. This was supposed to say 2016-17, what's new for HathiTrust, and I had 2015-16, and of course, I didn't catch that till today. But the big thing is with this next round of ACS, we'll have access to all the volumes, not just the 4.4 million volumes in the public domain. We'll have a next round of ACS call for mini grant, challenge grants in the late fall. We also will have integration of our bookworm tool. And if you haven't seen this, I'll show you the URL for it. If you've heard of the Google Ngram Viewer, that's what bookworm is. We got an NEH grant with the University of Illinois and some other partners to adapt that to the HathiTrust Research Center content. And we've tested it with the 4.4 million volumes. We're scaling that to the 14.7 now million volumes, and that changed since, so I found a second error today in my talk. And then we're also expanding our extracted feature set. Our feature set is one way of opening up the data where you're not giving the scholar the complete text, but you're giving them enough about the text that they can take that into their own compute facilities to do their research, or they can subset that looking at specific time frames in literature. That will be coming in mid to late fall as well in terms of the extracted feature set. And that's where we're seeing some of the most use so far, because once we're able to free that information in ways that comply with copyright, we're able to allow more researchers access to the information. These are our main links, useful links. The first one is our portal. That's our main portal where you can kind of link to everything that we have. We have the extracted feature data sets linked from there. We have an FAQ linked from there that kind of gives you a way of getting started, both with the standard collection builder that we have available, as well as with our data capsule. And then right now we're linking externally to the bookworm version, but we're working to integrate that with our portal real soon once we have the 14.7 million volumes analyzed. And that's a wonderful tool because as we've worked on that through that NEH grant, we've been able to offer other features to Bookworm that allow for customized metadata that can be very useful to researchers looking at narrower and narrower sets of data once they subset them. I'd like to thank our teams, both at Indiana and at Illinois. You see they're pretty wide-ranging teams. They include folks from the Data to Insights Center at IU, as well as the libraries, the School of Information Sciences, as well as the libraries at Illinois. And as I mentioned before, the teams in research technologies, both for storage and for the data capacitor, who've helped us both with syncing the collection and actually getting the physical digital copy here at IU so that we can mine it, but also in working with us long term for our production services, which have basically been based on the research file system as well as on IUIE virtual machines up to this point. We're about to integrate some brand new servers that are gifts to the University of Illinois, which will expand the amount of memory that we have for the data capsules and will give us a lot more flexibility for the larger data sets that we know will be flowing through there. And with that, I'm at the end of my talk for today. Thank you very much for your time.